What if hunger isn't just a consequence of war but a weapon of war itself? A growing body of global analysis now suggests that starvation in Gaza is not incidental but intentional. As the death toll rises and humanitarian corridors collapse, an alarming question grips the international community: is Israel using famine as a tool to force Palestinians out of their land? In this deeply human and politically charged report, we break down a disturbing analysis circulating across humanitarian, legal, and diplomatic circles that Israel's military blockade and siege tactics may constitute a deliberate policy of enforced starvation. Using evidence from UN agencies, international law experts, and first-hand reporting, we explore the historical backdrop, legal implications, moral outrage, and human toll of one of the most devastating charges of the 21st century Middle East conflict. Since the onset of the latest Israel-Hamas war following the October 7th attacks, Gaza's humanitarian lifelines have been systematically severed. According to reports from UNRWA, OCHA, and the World Food Programme, more than 80% of Gaza's population is now food insecure, with many living on less than one meal per day. Aid convoys have been bombed, border crossings closed, and bakeries destroyed. Crops are inaccessible, fishing boats have been banned. While Israel defends these moves as necessary to weaken Hamas, a growing group of international lawyers and human rights observers argue that the collective punishment of civilians, especially through hunger, violates international humanitarian law. Experts point to chilling statements made by some Israeli officials, such as Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's description of a complete siege: no electricity, no food, no fuel, which many interpret as an explicit admission of intent to starve. Israel maintains that it allows humanitarian aid through Egypt and accuses Hamas of hoarding supplies. However, multiple aid organizations have confirmed that Israeli airstrikes and bureaucratic hurdles are the main reasons convoys fail to enter. The result: a deliberate dismantling of Gaza's food infrastructure, one neighborhood, one bakery, one child at a time. The accusation that starvation is being weaponized brings the Israel-Hamas conflict into new legal territory. Under the Geneva Conventions, starvation of civilians is explicitly forbidden and classified as a war crime. Furthermore, Rome Statute Article 8 to BXXV, which underpins the International Criminal Court, outlaws intentionally using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. International experts are now openly questioning whether these actions cross the threshold. Former UN Special Rapporteur Michael Link has called the siege a textbook example of collective punishment. Francesca Albanese, the current UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories, argues that Israel's military campaign reflects a policy of forcible transfer, with starvation used to push populations out of strategic areas. Israel's defenders argue that Hamas deliberately embeds itself among civilians, making conventional warfare nearly impossible. However, international law makes no exceptions for starvation even in asymmetric warfare. Civilian protection is absolute, not conditional. What's more, if proven to be a deliberate strategy rather than collateral damage, starvation in Gaza may rise to the level of crimes against humanity, invoking the jurisdiction of international courts and triggering new waves of global condemnation. On the ground in Gaza, the statistics speak volumes, and so do the screams. UNICEF reports that tens of thousands of children are suffering from acute malnutrition, with some dying from dehydration and hunger-related illnesses. Hospitals have run out of infant formula, basic medication, and clean water. The death toll from hunger-related causes is mounting quietly, far from the dramatic headlines of missiles and tanks. Civilians now face an impossible choice: starve in place or flee with nowhere to go. Israel's demand that Palestinians evacuate south often leads to new areas of shelling, while Egypt and other neighbors refuse to open borders for mass resettlement. Critics argue this is part of a strategy to engineer long-term displacement, with starvation used as a tool of coercion. The psychological trauma is profound: mothers unable to feed their children, elderly dying slowly in the dark, children asking if rice is a memory or a myth. In a region historically battered by war, what's happening in Gaza now is not just another crisis, it is a slow-motion catastrophe unfolding under international watch. If we accept that food is life, then denying food is denying life itself. And if international law holds any meaning, the deliberate starvation of a civilian population must be recognized, prosecuted, and stopped. The Gaza crisis is no longer just a war, it is a humanitarian reckoning, as the global community weighs. Words like ceasefire and diplomacy, the children of Gaza weigh a handful of rice against the fear of dying in their sleep.